second graders. Today we're going to go on our creek study. But before we get there, we just had to stop and visit Quilber, the newest addition to Blandford's animals. So Quilber is a porcupine, and when he was young, he was injured and his mom didn't return back to him. So some people picked him up and they tried to have some other adult porcupines kind of act as a parent for him, but he didn't really interact with them very much. So then he ended up getting adopted by some humans, and he can't really survive out in the wild by himself because his mom wasn't able to teach him how to look for food or how to stay safe and find shelter in the winter. So if you make your way to Blandford, make sure you stop by and welcome Quilber. We're going to take a different path today to get to our Brandywine Creek. So this is right by where we have the animal ambassadors, where Quilber and Bob was. And if we follow this path down, we'll get to see some other areas of the Brandywine Creek. So it curves all through Blandford's property. So let's get exploring and check out some other spots of our creek. As we're walking, see if you see any signs of weathering or erosion. So any bits of the ground that have been kind of worn away and maybe have moved, especially as we look along the banks of the creek. Let's look at this part of our Brandywine Creek. So there's not much water down there, pretty dry, but look at the bank. That area has a lot of that dirt exposed. You can see some tree roots. So that's a sign of erosion and weathering. So rain or wind can cause pieces of that side to kind of fall apart. And then erosion occurs when that pieces of dirt now have fallen and moved somewhere else. Maybe when there's more water, it starts carrying that dirt and different sediments away. Then eventually it deposits it somewhere else. If you look here, there's lots of kind of gravel and sand that has been deposited right there. So the creek was a little wider before, but due to weathering and erosion, all of that sand and sediments kind of landed in the middle of that creek. Here we can see the sides that have really eroded away. You can see the tree roots hanging out. So that could be from wind or water, or could even be from people who are walking on the sides of the path and they cause it to kind of break apart. We finally made it to our normal spot of the creek where we're going to collect our data. So think, how is the creek the same or different from last time? What do you notice? Alright, since December is a short month, we're kind of combining our November and our December creek data today. So we're going to take some measurements of the creek for November and December. So today is December 2nd. And let's look at our air temperature. So our air temperature today is right about here, kind of in the middle. So what would it be if it's a little bit lower than 45? That could be 44 or 43. And today the air temperature is 43 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's notice, when we came in October, it was 48 degrees Fahrenheit. So the air temperature is a little bit colder, but not by too much. All right, we have two special helpers today. Henry's gonna help, and Virginia's gonna help with the digital thermometer. So we gotta step down. Good, hold it, put it in the water. So I'm going to show you where our temperature was for the water. Our water temperature was right here below the 40. And it was one line underneath. So that means it was 38 degrees does that mean that the water was colder or warmer than the air? All right, let's look at our water depth next. Let's look. Our water depth in September was 9 centimeters deep. Then in October, it was 8 centimeters deep. So what do we think now for December? Is it gonna be higher or lower? Take a guess at what you think it is. All right, let's find out. All right, let's see. It was right here at 10 centimeters. So what does that mean on our chart? It was at 9, 8, and now it's at 10. So think, why do you think the water is higher now? Now we're looking at our flow rates. We drop our leaf in the same spot each time. So remember that this data for flow rate isn't always very accurate. It's kind of more of an estimate. So let's look. So this time it traveled 122 centimeters in 6 seconds. So in September it traveled in 8 seconds, then in 6 seconds, and now 6 seconds again. Now let's look for some signs of weathering or erosion by our creek. I see a lot of erosion that has happened on the bank of our creek. You see all those different lines of dirt? That's all erosion. Pieces of sand and soil that have fallen off, that have been weathered away. And look over here. This kind of gives you an idea of how deep those tree roots go. So the ground underneath that has been worn away. What kind of weathering do you think happened that would cause these pieces of the soil to break apart? Right at a creek. And what's one thing that causes weathering? Yeah, water. So it looks like water and probably some high winds have caused this area to be eroded. I also see some holes. I wonder if there's some critters that are living in those holes in the mud. So cool. Right by the bridge of our creek, it says, please hike on the trail. The creek banks and slopes in this area are vulnerable to erosion. That means that erosion can happen really easily if you're walking right along the outside of that dirt on the banks right by the water. Hope you enjoyed our hike. I'll see you next time.